I would like to move on to the next agenda point, which is the program budget matters. So it's the agenda item 6. The relevant documents are shown on the screen, or should be shown on the screen. Under this agenda item, the Regional Committee will be invited to consider the financial situation of WHO Europe in the current biennium and the measures taken to address it, as well as the outlook for implementation of the WHO program budget 2026-27 in our region. With this, I would like to give the floor back to the Regional Director for the introductory remarks, if he's ready.
Always ready, Chair, always ready. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, from the very beginning of my mandate, I've emphasized one fundamental truth. Reimagining the Regional Office for Europe is not just an option, it is an imperative. It's the third pillar of our success, standing alongside our policy leadership and technical excellence in public health. In 2025, we faced a seismic shift, the funding crisis that shook WHO and the entire UN system. The crisis has ignited a vital process, a collective effort to design sustainable, resilient international organizations capable of remaining relevant, impactful and accountable for our member states. The path toward a successful implementation of the second EPW2, which you just adopted, depends on bold, transformative change. Change in what we deliver, how we deliver it, and how we operate as a regional office. I want to thank each one of you for your unwavering support, expressed through briefings, consultations, and dedicated engagement in our governance processes. We are learning, adapting, and improving, delivering different with less, and our commitment is unwavering to safeguard WHO's core functions. Those big tickets that will shape the health and well-being of the people of Europe and Central Asia today and in the future. It depends on our ability to anticipate, to advise and to support member states through the complex health challenges of our time. And this is the cornerstone of our vision, a WHO Europe that stands as a beacon of clarity within the broader health architecture. The WHO Europe of tomorrow will be stronger, healthier and more trusted, grounded in scientific rigor and operational excellence and AI and a robust evidence base. This is how we will earn and sustain trust. This session, focusing on the program budget 24-25 and strategic plans for 26-27, offers a blueprint for transformation. It's about turning adversity into opportunity, about doing different, better and smarter. The restructuring of our regional office, despite the painful decisions involved, is a necessary step. A step to align our services with emerging needs and priorities of the EPW2. We operate as part of a global organization, aligned with the broader UN family and UN 80. Our capacity to manage this transformation effectively depends on your unwavering support and partnership, and your shared commitment to a healthier Europe and a healthier world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hans, and I'm happy that you're always ready, so we can go on with our program. Let me pass the floor now to the Secretariat colleagues, and I don't have to introduce you, Corinne, you have the floor.
Thank you, Executive President. So this session on budget matters will focus on two items: Program Budget 24-25, including human resources matters, and we'll then turn to an outlook of Program Budget 26-27. There are two related documents for this session. First, the accountability report, especially the section related to program budget matters. And number two, the document EUR/RC75/26 on program budget 26-27. So I would start with an overview of the budget, of our budget in the European region in the past few years, with a focus on our various types of funding. The color coding indicates the different type of funding we receive. In green, the core flexible funds. In orange, the thematic flexible funds. In blue, the specified voluntary contribution. In purple, the global reserves. And in gray, the funding gaps. So, focusing first on the core flexible funds. Those are the fully flexible funds, and we can see that in the past, until now, we have had a low flexibility in allocating funds, that is below 40%. The orange part, the thematic flexible funds, these funds are very precious as well. They come with a high level of flexibility. They are not fully flexible, but they are very precious level of flexibility, which has allowed us in the past to allocate those resources to areas that were underfunded and priorities. However, we can see that these precious areas of funds is shrinking from 21% to 9% in the current biennium. Now the blue portion, the specified voluntary contribution, or what we call the earmarked contribution, these have been increasing quite sharply from 37% to 51% in the current biennium. And now if we have a look at the combined green and orange portion of our funding, which are the fully flexible and the highly flexible funds, between the biennium 2021 and the current one, we had a drop of 57% to 46%. So our reality is a lower possibility of allocating funds, a lower flexibility, which goes together with an increased earmarking and an increased reliance on voluntary contribution. In addition to this, we are facing a mismatch between priorities set by member states and funding available. And this is more obvious when we look at the split of our funding by outcome from the GPW. We have been discussing for a while the so-called pockets of poverty. So pockets of poverty are areas that are identified as high priorities, but that do not attract donor funding. And these in our region are mainly in 1.3, access to essential medicines and all outcomes under emergency preparedness and response. In the current biennium, you can see that the green and orange portion have been allocated strategically to these areas, and that highlights the importance of the flexible funds, the fully flexible and the thematic funds. At the bottom of the graph, we can also see that leadership and enabling functions rely quite heavily on flexible funds. I will soon turn to voluntary contribution, but before doing that, I would like to acknowledge and thank our member states, the member states from the European region, because you have been advancing WHO sustainable financing. Not only you are strong supporters of the increased access contribution, but you are also walking the talk by providing fully flexible voluntary funding to WHO globally. Indeed, in 2024-25, out of the total amount of fully flexible funding to WHO, 93%, 93, came from 14 member states from our region. And I would like to mention them here to acknowledge this support. The United Kingdom, Germany, Sweden, the Netherlands, Denmark, Norway, France, Ireland, Belgium, Spain, Luxembourg, Switzerland, Finland, and Malta. Our deepest appreciation for this support. I will now turn to voluntary contribution, and here again, those, as I mentioned earlier, this is currently our largest part of our funding. I would like here also to thank all member states from our region and other contributors for the support to WHO Europe during this biennium. And of course, a special thanks to Germany, who announced yesterday a 10 million additional contribution, including 2.5 million to WHO Europe. Thank you very much for this. Now, in our region, you can see on this slide that we are relying for 76% of our voluntary contribution. We are relying on 10 top donors. Out of this, among the top 4, 1 will disappear. In the slide you'll see next year. That's the United States of America. And very few, you can see 5 on this screen with the orange portion, are providing flexible funds in the form of thematic flexible fund. And this actually is a continuous pattern of our funding where we have low predictability, little flexibility, and a high dependency on a small number of donors. Of course, again, we are very grateful for this contribution, but it makes us vulnerable to a change in priority in these donors or the willingness to support the priorities set in the region. And this will remain one of the challenges for sustainable financing of the regional office in the near and long term. Now let's move to the end of the current biennium. This slide is showing the evolution of our salary gap in red since the beginning of the year and the withdrawal of the US finances. So we started with a 28.1 million gap, estimated projected gap. Since the beginning of the year, WHO Europe has implemented cost-saving measures from limiting non-essential travels to putting on hold non-critical procurements, reducing running costs where possible, shortening or cancelling consultant contracts, reducing temporary hires, or offering early retirement. And with this, we anticipate by end of the year that will save about 5.9 million. That's the portion that you can see in green. In July, we conducted a review of staffing and activities. We cut costs where it was possible. We shifted funds from project to salaries and across programmatic areas where possible. And of course, that was done in close cooperation with our donors. With this, we anticipate that our gap will go down from 28.1 million from the beginning of the year to 17.5 million. We will close the biennium thanks to not only those efforts, but also the access to the Global Reserve Funds that was made available through the decision of the World Health Assembly to suspend temporarily Financial Rule 8.2, allowing us to access those global reserves to allow for the transition. We have already received 8.2 million so far, and another 9.3 million are expected before the end of the year. This will create a clean start for a sustainable biennium in 26-27 for our region. Now, I will soon pass the floor to my colleague David, who will provide an update on our staffing profile. But before doing that, I would like to introduce actually his next slide by talking about the staff costs. And here you'll see on the left the biennium 2021, which is pre-COVID. And on the far right, our planned cost for 26-27. What we see on this slide is that between the current biennium and the next one, we are reducing our HR cost by about 50 million. This is bringing us closer to the pre-COVID time with the 140 million. So we are moving towards this target. Now, this is about the cost. Behind this number, there are colleagues, there are friends, there are families, and this time is extremely difficult for our colleagues, for us, for the work we are doing. And we need to recognize here, and I would like to recognize the resilience of our staff, but also the work that keeps going and that we are all here for the regional committee. And I pass the floor to David now to present on the HR profile. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Corinne. And indeed, all these numbers and data are shown with the understanding that behind them, there's a lot of people. So before Corinne goes ahead and shows you the outlook for 26-27, we would like to display for you the expected impacts that our reprioritization process is having on WHO Europe workforce. For perspective, I'm going to show you 3 slides, and all of these are use as data points the actual staff numbers in January 2020, January 25, and what we expect will be staff placed in posts that are continuing in 26-27. So this first slide gives you a perspective on the overall numbers and their distribution among grades. The most obvious message here is the considerable drop between January 25, when Euro staff numbers were at their highest after 4 years of emergencies in Ukraine and us managing COVID and post-COVID programs across the region. As we see, their headcount will reduce by 265 to fit into the 26-27 HR plan. We also see that the reductions in staff are affecting all grade levels relatively consistently from 25 to 26. Changes to the organizational profile are more emphasized when we compare with 2020, where we see a 25% increase in our new structure of junior professional positions, and a decrease in 13% in the most senior positions, P6, D1, D2, since the pre-COVID levels. This fully aligns with our intent to ensure continued viability of WHO, of Euro's technical excellence by investing in our younger staff. The largest shift since 2020 is an 86% increase in national professional officers, which can be partially attributed to our continued efforts and importance that we place in our country office in Ukraine, but it's also part of a move at the CO level away from operations towards more substantive policy advisory roles. Looking at the numbers between regional office and country offices, and I hope you can see this on the bigger screen, we note that since 2020, the relative percentages between RO and country office have shifted considerably towards the country office, with a continuation of approximately 50-50 split also in 2026. This is a trend we've been speaking about consistently over the past few years at these regional committee meetings. In effect, when we compare our 2020 to where we will be in 26, we see that we will have 115 more staff than in pre-COVID times. We have to think that 100 of these are the increase that we see in the Ukraine country office. And therefore, we can say that the reprioritization process is returning us to almost exactly the same level in country offices and regional office level as we were in pre-COVID. A very similar, almost same distribution. Sorry, on the previous slide, I just wanted to mention that it shows how the business model Hans spoke of yesterday is starting to take shape in our structures, particularly ensuring Copenhagen remains the technical powerhouse required by the region, and the COs move towards anticipatory and substantive policy advice functions, away from the resource-intensive project delivery. Okay, so on this last slide, I am pleased to note for member states that the outcome we are seeing from the reprioritization process maintains Euro's strong performance across the workforce indicators. As the large graph at the bottom shows, we have been very consistent in maintaining strong gender balance throughout the past 5 years, and we have been able to safeguard and further increase the relative number of women in senior positions across the region. Regarding geographical distribution, while we've had some shifts to increases in staff in certain locations, particularly in Ukraine, Turkey, and Kazakhstan, we have maintained and improved on under and overrepresentation figures, and we maintain the highest number of nationalities of any WHO regional office. Lastly, we feel it's important to note that the WHO Euro workforce remains the youngest across the organization, with an average age of 46. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, David. So we are going to move now to program budget 26-27 and an overview of where we stand as of September 2025. So the program budget, as you recall, has decreased by about 15% from 363.6 million to 308.9 million for the next biennium. We are expecting about 141 million of core flexible funds, the green ones, the flexible. We have about 4 million secured of multi-annual thematic funds agreements. Then we have about 90 million of voluntary contribution, including 70 already secured and 20 million which are in the pipeline and hopefully will materialize in the close future. This leaves us with 74.6 million. And as you see, the gray area is now turning from a gap to a resource mobilization target. That's how we are taking it. This slide is showing both an opportunity and a challenge. It's showing an opportunity because should we be able today to show you a fully funding biennium, we would likely be in the same situation I've highlighted earlier with a misalignment of funding and the priorities to be funded. So we take this 75 million, let's say, as an opportunity to rethink or to renew our approach to resource mobilization. What are we going to do? First, our goal is to reach a fully funded budget and ultimately a fully funded EPW2 with no pockets of poverty, with increased flexibility and predictability. To do that, we have a twofold objective. First, we will preserve the funding of the current top donors, and we will expand our funding base from new donors, both member states from the region and beyond, but also from international financing institution, foundation, and of course we'll work hand in hand with our UN sisters agencies for resource mobilization in areas of common interest. To do that, we have identified 4 enablers. We will focus our efforts, and they will be guided by EPW2 that you just endorsed, and thank you for that. That will be our guidance. We will beef up our resource mobilization skills with particular focus at country level. We will leverage the potential of new tools, including artificial intelligence, and in a moment I will pass the floor again to David to talk more about it. And of course, we work hand in hand with our headquarters, supporting corporate efforts to mobilize additional flexible funds and support the future increases of assets contribution. Now, I would like to point out here that when we talk resource mobilization, we tend to think about money, about finances. This is not only about money. This is also about new ways of getting human resources. We are talking secondment, internship, and maybe new ways of getting human resources. So we need to explore all this. So that's where we are going with our resource mobilization strategy. Now you will probably think, well, that's nice, but isn't it disconnected from the reality? Indeed. We are living in a new world with global and regional landscape which are more and more difficult for resource mobilization, especially resource mobilization for health. And we are not immune from another financial shock. So this renewed resource mobilization strategy must be put in the context of a very challenging environment where US funding will no longer be available, where there is an increasingly difficult environment to mobilize funds for health, leading to increased competition, and I've pointed out earlier to our dependency on a few large donors with a declining level of thematic funds and an increased earmarking of funds, making our feeling of the pockets of poverty more difficult. So, what are we doing? As mentioned earlier, reducing cost by 50 million for the next biennium, a renewed resource mobilization strategy, tapping on new tools, including artificial intelligence, and again, David will talk about it in a minute. However, mobilizing about 75 million for the right areas of work, again, and for the right cost categories will be the main challenge moving forward, and we are fully aware of that. So moving forward, we are going to continuously monitor our new HR plan. We are going to continuously monitor the results of our effort with our renewed resource mobilization strategy. That will allow us to detect very early if there is any further needs in efficiencies in HR and activities. So we will try to continue to anticipate, to be agile, to be able to respond to the needs of our member states, and to be ready and make full use of new tools and technologies. And with this, I pass the floor to David to provide an example of focusing on artificial intelligence.
Thank you, Corinne. And indeed, big ask. We have a lot of efficiencies to manage and to realize. And our AI vision is very clear: efficiency and transformation. As a UN organization, we operate in a unique space where confidentiality, limited resources, and ethical responsibilities are part of our daily reality. So our approach to AI is both ambitious and careful. We use it to increase efficiency and transparency while staying fully and firmly anchored in our values. We are embedding AI as a capability of WHO Europe, so the organization runs faster, smarter, and with ever-improved use of resources. This is not something sitting on the side. It's becoming part of how we operate. We believe strongly that by reducing manual workload, we increase impact. Hans' leadership has allowed and often pushed us to move early. We chose a build it and they will come approach, building capability internally, making AI usable now, not in the distant future, or for staff to figure it out for themselves. To make this real, we structured our approach around 4 priorities that we developed internally. These were refined during a workshop we organized here in Copenhagen last March with the support of Nordic AI experts. The first priority is people. Everything starts with capability. If staff can't use AI confidently, it won't work. We have already trained about 500 colleagues, all of them voluntarily. We also organized AI training for senior management because adoption must start from the top. Hans himself has received a lot of training. We're building confidence, not dependency. Our second priority is smarter operations. This is where efficiency becomes visible. We have removed friction from everyday work with a number of systems already in production and everyday use, saving time and improving turnaround. We are now moving into agentic AI, AI that executes tasks end to end, not to replace people, but to protect their time and shift effort to higher value work. Our third priority is technical excellence. Here we strengthen core delivery, drafting, translation, formatting, data analysis, research support. This is about quality and consistency in programmatic work and scaling what works. Our fourth priority, using AI as the operating layer. This is a much longer horizon, 4 to 5 years. We see responsible AI integration directly into systems and processes coming, not just tools, making the organization more data-driven and continuously improving. To reach that layer, we have a lot of work to do, a lot of research and development, prototyping, a lot of sandboxing, a lot of time to think and work through things well. This is how we move from using AI to running with AI. This is 4 priorities with 1 direction, as Hans has said. AI is a capability of WHO Europe, delivering efficiency now and transformation over time. So our delivery engine is PERA, built in-house, aligned with WHO governance, and designed around WHO workflows. Some of you may have seen the display outside of this room that we're showing that gives much more information and a rolling viewing of the different platforms that we're using. Instead of buying thousands of commercial licenses at very high annual costs, we chose a tailored approach that gives us control, lower costs, and better relevance. And PERA in several areas goes further because it understands how WHO works. This isn't a pilot, it's live, in daily use across the region. We started with PERA efficiency. PERA efficiency was our first rollout when cost containment measures began. We needed a way to communicate changing internal processes without adding headcount or buying new systems. It has saved staff a significant amount of time and brought clarity and structure to routine operational tasks. Then came PERA learning, because staff were asking for training and wanted to build confidence with AI. Here they learn by interacting directly with a large language model, not theory. It gives them hands-on understanding of how to use AI in their work. Then we have Paratranslate, built for secure internal transition of WHO documents and working materials. This protects confidentiality while cutting turnaround time. Usage is already high because it solves a real operational bottleneck. And the last one I have on here is our PETA recap. And this generates structured meeting notes for internal meetings. It replaces the need for purchasing expensive external licenses, which we cannot justify under current financial constraints. Instead, we built our own solution that works within our governance, our meeting culture, and our security requirements. And many of you have also used our meeting and events PETA in various different meetings you've been in. And we also have our own chat. In every case, PETA translates into cost efficiencies, reduces friction, and brings capability inside the organization, not dependent on external tools or commercial licenses. At Euro, we're proving that we will be able to do differently with less, while continue to aim at big results. Today at 6:15, in the press room, we are demonstrating a bit of how this works and where you can get more insights and perhaps bring some thoughts back to your colleagues, departments, and ministries. The focus will be on transparency and practical transfer, showing what is working already, not theory. We're very lucky and appreciative to have France, Kazakhstan, Czech Republic, Denmark, and Portugal joining on the panel to share real examples from their countries. All delegates are invited to attend. AI is really improving speed for us. Speed, consistency, and cost efficiency for us in WHO Europe. This isn't future talk. This is really operational right now, and we are scaling it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you very much, the team and Corinne, for this in-depth reviews and also what you already using in terms of AI. With this, I would like to open the floor to the member states to see if you have some comments and interventions, and to take it then up, obviously, to our other colleagues and the non-state actors. I see Denmark has raised his name flag, and I guess it's a joint statement. Denmark, you have the floor.
Honorable Chair, distinguished Regional Director, Excellencies, dear colleagues, I have the honor of speaking on behalf of the European Union and its 27 member states. We thank the Regional Director for the comprehensive update on program budget matters and the 2025 accountability report. The significant progress made in strengthening transparency, efficiency, and accountability across WHO Europe, especially under exceptional financial and operational constraints, is exemplary. The region now faces the dual challenge of delivering under a reduced budget while ensuring technical excellence and maintaining continuity of essential technical cooperation. Looking towards the next biennium, we commend the Secretariat's efforts to realign priorities and resources through the strategic reprioritization and restructuring process. It is essential to align available resources with the forthcoming second European Programme of Work and GPW 14, protecting normative and advisory capacities, maintaining a strong country presence where meaningful, and seeking coherence across all levels of the organization, while identifying synergies with partners, including through the UN80 process and the reform of the global health architecture. To ensure global efficiency, this process must be carried out in full cooperation with WHO headquarters and regional offices. We further stress the need for robust monitoring and evaluation mechanisms to ensure that restructuring leads to measurable improvements in effectiveness, impact, and value for money. We welcome the combined focus in the Programme Budget 26-27 document on the financial outlook and the human resources situation, and recommend that this approach is continued for 2026 in order so that member states have a clear overview of the financial and human resources available to support implementation in the next biennium. Human resources must also be analyzed not only in terms of quantity, but of expertise. Accountability, inclusivity, and transparency must remain guiding principle throughout the transformation process. We look forward to the briefing from Member States, which is due to present the final results of restructuring plan before the end of 2025. We would also welcome it if the January SCRC session, at which the program budget implementation plan is to be presented, could be open to all Member States. The EU and its Member States underline the importance of predictable, flexible and sustainable financing to enable WHO Europe to respond effectively to health priorities. The current imbalance between earmarked and flexible funds limits the organization's ability to address cross-cutting needs and emerging health challenges. We therefore encourage continued expansion of multi-year and flexible funding arrangements as set out by the investment round. Given the limited proportion of resources, we stress the importance of financially supporting WHO Europe. We equally stress the importance of more balanced contribution amongst Member States and of donor diversification. Finally, we reaffirm our commitment to a strong and effective WHO at all levels. The breadth and pace of the European region's reforms can set a precedent for resilience and innovation across the organization, ensuring that WHO continues to deliver on its mandate to promote health, protect against threats, and serve all people equally. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Denmark. I would like to give the floor to Germany, followed by Israel.
Thank you, Chair. Germany aligns itself with a statement delivered by Denmark on behalf of the European Union and its member states. Our region faces significant challenges. We recognize and are truly impressed by the ongoing transformation within WHO Europe, notably the restructuring and the prioritization that will clarify and maintain critical functions despite the reduced budget envelope. But it's very clear that we remain concerned about the continued reliance on earmarked funds and the very small number of donors, which limits WHO Europe's capacity to respond to cross-cutting priorities. As Corinne has shown, the top 3 donors contribute alone roughly 49% of all voluntary funding. Every second dollar that comes voluntary comes from 3 major donors, one of them not being part of our region, and the funding from that donor will not come in the future anymore. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, donor number 5 is Gavi, and also with Gavi we know that Gavi is facing severe financial challenges, so the funding that will come from Gavi will be reduced in the very near future, most likely. This imbalance poses major risks to the long-term sustainability of euro and must be addressed. There's one thing that Corinne said very, very clearly, and that is, even if we funded the entire program budget, most likely the funds wouldn't go where we need them. Why is that? Yeah, we are debating that again and again. And it's very easy why that is. We are here all together representing health ministries. We are setting health and scientific goals for this organization. But the funding that most of our member states provide to you, they are not coming from health. They are coming from development or foreign affairs. And to a large extent, they are targeted for global, and then obviously with a very clear interest in implementing development or foreign affairs goals. And unless each of our member states changes that and realizes that WHO is not primarily a development aid implementing agency, especially Euro is not, I think there will always be this mismatch. Yeah, so it's nothing that we can expect others to do. It's something that we need to do. The German government 10 years ago has decided to provide funding through the health ministry in order to address this mismatch. Yeah, but and I think a couple of other member states also do that. Germany therefore sees a clear need to broaden and diversify the donor base in order to reduce dependencies on a very few donor base, especially since we were painfully reminded of the dangers of such a model at the beginning of this year. WHO Euro is a responsibility of its member states, in basically all member states sitting in this room currently. Yeah? So you shouldn't be expecting others to pay for our common goals, but we all need to contribute. Together, we need to expand the pool of flexible funding in order to maintain operational agility. We need more flexible and multi-year funding arrangements, as well as transparent, accountable, and effective resource mobilization strategies that ensure predictability in financing, particularly for core functions. In view of the financial gaps, the ongoing restructuring measures, unfortunately but clearly, also include staff reductions. It is more important now than ever that WHO staff continues to be treated, and we know that Hans and the senior management does that, with the necessary respect and care. After all, we are talking about the backbone of this organization. These very sensitive staff decisions have a major impact on individual lives and entire families. Therefore, sensitivity, fairness, transparency need to be the guiding principles, and we are reassured that they are, making sure that the institutional knowledge of WHO sometimes acquires over many years is not lost. In conclusion, we reaffirm our commitment to a strong, sustainable WHO euro that is capable of addressing health challenges across the region. We call for continued collaboration between member states, euro, and partners to ensure a financial, stable, and future-proof organization. Thank you, and sorry for going over time.
Thank you very much for your intervention. Let's move swiftly to Israel, followed by Finland.
Thank you, Chair, distinguished delegates. WHO is navigating an increasingly complex financial environment. As the Regional Director's Accountability and Transparency Report highlights, the organization continues to operate under considerable fiscal pressure, with resource gaps threatening the implementation of key health programs. Israel recognizes the serious effort made by the regional office to strengthen transparency, including in financial reporting, internal control systems, and the introduction of clearer links between budget planning and performance. These are encouraging developments. However, as the report makes clear, challenges remain, particularly the need for more consistent reporting on how resources translate into tangible results. Every allocation must produce measurable benefits for public health in core areas, and that administrative and procedural costs are kept at a minimum. Fragmented funding and overlapping initiatives risks diverting limited resources from core priorities. Israel believes that any call for increased member state contribution must be accompanied by a clear plan of work with priorities that are both transparent and justified. We support the regional director's emphasis on strengthening evaluation and audit functions, and we encourage further steps to make these reviews publicly accessible and outcome-oriented. In the same spirit, Israel urges WHO to continue refining its accountability framework, ensuring that performance monitoring and resource management are integrated at every level, from regional planning to country implementation. Ultimately, WHO's credibility depends on its ability to show that funds are used efficiently, directed towards core goals, and with measurable impact. Israel looks forward to working with others to advance reforms that align WHO's financial management with the principles of transparency, accountability, and impact. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Israel. Let's move to Finland, followed by France.
Thank you, Chair. Finland aligns itself with the statement of the European Union and its member states. We recognize the significant financial pressures facing WHO Europe, particularly the structural constraints posed by the reduced budgets for 2026-27. The forecasted reduction has required strategic and rapid reimagining of the regional office's operating model. We commend the efforts to maintain normative leadership and operational continuity under these challenging circumstances. However, we remain concerned about the sustainability of core regional functions, considering that the level of expected fully flexible funding will not be sufficient to cover all priority areas. Continuous efforts are needed to ensure that the budget remains adequate to deliver essential public health outcomes effectively. When it comes to relocating functions from the regional office, we remain concerned about strategic guidance and oversight, as well as maintaining a unified organizational culture. We fully understand the complexity of operating under significant budget reductions, and just note that slightly earlier availability of the budget documentation may have supported more thorough review and engagement from our side. In the context of global economic volatility and shifting geopolitical dynamics, we emphasize the investment in health, both nationally and multilaterally, as an essential, not only for the health of people, but also for security and societal resilience. So we encourage WHO Europe to continue targeted resource mobilization efforts. We're really pleased to see the renewed approach, including expanding flexible and multi-year financing, and to reinforce health as a cornerstone of development, stability and security. Finland continues to support the Euro activities on non-communicable diseases and economy of well-being. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Finland. Let's give the floor to France, followed by Slovenia.
And I will speak again in French. Thank you, Presidency. Distinguished Chair, Monsieur le
Regional Director, colleagues of France would align itself with the statement made on behalf of the European Union by the Danish Presidency. We'd like to thank the Regional Director for presenting the budget and programme for 26-27 and the transparency of the report on 2025 transparency. We welcome the quality of the work done. It's been carried out under rigid financial constraints, and we welcome the determination of the management to maintain accountability and transparency. We'd like to express our understanding for the work being done. We recognise that AI can facilitate work here, and we recognise the importance of the work being done in human resources. WHO Europe is having to do more with less. There is technical excellence. There is ongoing cooperation with countries. Prioritising and structuring this work is a major challenge. But the organisations need to change to accommodate new realities without changing its fundamental mission. It has an underpinning of overarching mission, rather, to work with other regional bureaus, other regional offices. But at the same time, it's necessary to carry out adjustments at all levels of the organisation. Regional prioritisation cannot be carried out in isolation. They have to be closely coordinated with headquarters in order to avoid missing important areas of work or indeed duplicating important areas of work. In this phase of reorganisation, we do have an opportunity to reinforce the whole WHO system. And in close cooperation with all of the stakeholders in the multilateral system, and with a view to the UN 80 initiative, we have the opportunity to better work with other UN agencies to tap synergy, sharing resources and skills, and guaranteeing the coherence of multilateral actions in the region. We thank the Secretariat for the work already done in this area and would encourage their continuation. We recognise the importance of the global trends as we move forward together in our work. And we will need to keep an eye on prioritisation to ensure that essential topics don't get left behind, including reproductive and sexual rights and also other important areas linked to human rights. Coordination is essential to ensure that deprioritising does not lead to gaps elsewhere. There needs to be coordination at the global level, and to carry out this transition, transparency and accountability need to be our watchwords. We believe that an integrated approach, integrating financial analysis and human resources vision will give us an overview of what is necessary as we approach the next biennium. We would reaffirm our full commitment to the WHO for multilateral governance, serving the well-being and health of all. Thank you. Thank you again for your statement, and we'll continue now.
Slovenia, followed by Turkey.
Thank you, dear Chair. Slovenia aligns itself with a statement by Denmark on behalf of the EU, and we thank the regional director, dear Hans, and your team for their dedication and professionalism in preparing the draft program budget 26-27, particularly in the context of significant restructuring and financial constraints. We express our full solidarity with the WHO Europe staff who have faced this challenging period with commitment, resilience, and dignity. We recognize the enormous effort made by you and to stabilize WHO Europe's finance and commend the regional director for taking decisive action to ensure that the biennium 24-25 concludes with a clean slate. This prudent management provides a solid foundation for the next biennium by strengthening the credibility and sustainability of our regional office. And Slovenia fully supports the proposed approach to prioritization and welcomes the renewed focus of alignment with the second EPW and GPW 14. We also support the search for innovative approaches to resourcing the organization's work through enhanced collaboration with international networks and institutions, leveraging member states' expertise and resources, and expanding secondments, internship, and partnership that promote mutual learning and strengthen institutional capacity. We underline the importance of maintaining strong analytical and policy functions, including by investing and using capacities of the European Observatory on Health System and Policies, whose work is invaluable for evidence-informed decision-making and health system strengthening across our region. Slovenia will continue to support WHO Europe financially, politically, and technically. We stand ready to explore how can we actively contribute to implementation of the new program budget, including through collaboration in sub-regional initiatives, sharing expertise, and supporting WHO-led networks. Finally, we commend the regional director for his transparent communication and decisive leadership during this period of transition. Slovenia remains a steadfast partner of WHO Europe, and it's confined that together we will emerge from this process stronger, more efficient, and better equipped to deliver on our shared vision for a better and healthier Europe. On that note, I would like, as a symbolic gesture, invite you all to join us for a traditional Slovenian breakfast tomorrow at 8:15 at the Atlantic Lounge. We will serve fresh bread, butter and honey for a good start of the day and to honor the bees, who are not only important pollinators and honey producers, but also sensitive indicators of environmental change. And welcome, see you tomorrow, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Slovenia. I'm sure lots of us will come for the honey. With that, I would like to give the floor to Turkey, followed by the United Kingdom.
Thank you, Chair. Distinguished delegates, we commend the Secretariat for the clear and forward-looking presentation of budgetary implementation outlook. The presentation and relevant documents reflect strong alignment with EPW2 and GPW14, as well as a thoughtful response to the current fiscal and organizational constraints. We recognize the Secretariat's efforts to maintain programmatic coherence while advancing necessary restructuring and reprioritization measures. The emphasis on accountability, cost efficiency, and performance monitoring is highly appreciated. The proposed mechanisms for continuous risk assessment, evaluation, and adaptive management will be crucial in ensuring that implementation remains evidence-based and results-oriented. At the same time, several risk areas deserve continued attention. The significant reduction in the budget envelope and limited flexibility in voluntary contributions may affect delivery capacity in critical technical areas, including immunization, health workforce, and emergency preparedness. Maintaining core normative functions while safeguarding country-level impact will require careful balance and close coordination. In this regard, we support the Secretariat's back-to-basics approach, applying the principles of cost containment, resource mobilization, and strategic representation consistently across all budgetary and operational processes will be essential to preserve WHO Europe's technical integrity and ensure sustainability. We encourage the Secretariat to continue engaging Member States throughout the implementation phase, fostering transparency, shared ownership, and mutual accountability. Such collaboration will be key to turning this challenging biennium into an opportunity for a more agile, coherent, and resilient WHO. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Turkey. And I would like to give the floor to the United Kingdom, followed by Bulgaria.
Thank you, Chair. And can I just thank Corinne and David for those really helpful presentations. Lots of fantastic information in there. And can I commend the work of the whole of the regional team, actually, for continuing to deliver fantastic outcomes in very difficult circumstances. And I completely echo the points that Germany and Slovenia and some others have made about the impacts on staff and the human factor here. And we really understand that. We also appreciate the transparent and consultative approach you've taken throughout this, and we welcome WHO's close engagement with other global and European health institutions to ensure that the overall architecture is coherent and efficient. Needless to say, and as you pointed out, your unique technical expertise and leadership must be supported by a transparent and realistic budget aligned to the critical needs of the region. We welcome WHO Euro's continued efforts to reduce costs and find efficiencies. We also appreciate the collective progress on WHO sustainable financing, including the recent increase in assessed contributions, which we were very pleased to support. But we do want to flag just one note of caution on the dependency on reserves. We understand exactly why that's happened, but clearly it's not a sustainable approach, and we shouldn't be assuming that those funds will be available going forward. We also note the high levels of earmarked funding, which are resulting in certain areas being overfunded. Where areas are fully funded, we urge you to reallocate core flexible funding to underfunded critical outcomes, and I think the slides show that you are doing that, so thank you. We note the $75 million gap that remains for the 26-27 period. We admire your optimism in terms of resource mobilisation, but we also think it's extremely important to be planning for an outcome where we can't fill that gap completely, and planning to safeguard delivery, particularly for health emergency functions. Looking beyond 26-27, we agree that fully flexible funding is absolutely vital to enable Euro to continue to deliver EPW2, and it's really striking that it is some of those functions which I think we would all consider to be our first duty, health security, which are pockets of poverty, as Corinne's slide showed. We welcome the Secretariat's proposals for monitoring implementation of the transformation process. We look forward to continued regular updates on that. And we look forward to receiving the final restructuring plan by the end of the year and a more detailed implementation outlook in early 2026. We would welcome an open SCRC discussion for all Euro member states to receive this update. And finally, just to thank my team for helping with this intervention, which I don't think was written by AI, but possibly next one will be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, United Kingdom. Let's move to Bulgaria, followed by Norway, and again, Bulgaria will have
No.
Okay. You have the floor, Bulgaria.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Regional Director, distinguished delegates, Bulgaria aligns itself with the EU statement made on behalf of the EU and its member states. We're concerned with the late submission of the report on this item. However, our country has timely and consistently expressed comments and observations on WHO budgetary management. Bulgaria notes positive reductions of the WHO Regional Director for Europe regarding the optimization of human resources in the WHO Regional Office for Europe, and we hope that a preliminary impact assessment has been carried out. The organization should be able to stand for its purpose. It is important to find the balance between carrying out innovative reforms and safeguarding essential technical expertise. The Bulgarian delegation notes the need to coordinate the distribution of program budget costs with governments in order to achieve greater added value in the WHO European region with the implementation of the decision of the Regional Committee for Europe. This, combined with appropriate monitoring, would ensure the much-needed transparency and accountability that the organization strives for. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Bulgaria. I'd like to give the floor to Norway, followed by our last member state intervention, the Russian Federation.
Thank you, Chair, Regional Director, Excellencies. Norway applaud the regional office's ongoing efforts to cut costs and reform while preserving critical areas of work and WHO's normative leadership. We are nevertheless concerned that the budget for 2026-27 will not be finalized before the end of this year. Ideally, we would like to see the budget document 2026-27 also containing budget figures from previous periods, as well as actual figures from the last period, to illustrate trends. This will help us to understand which areas, both thematically and geographically, will be affected by increases and decreases to the budget and ultimately the corresponding activities. We are also somewhat concerned on the significant use of global reserves in the proposed budget and would like to better understand the potential long-term implications for risk management. We look forward to further information, including on how the Secretariat plans to involve Member States when the programme budget for 2026-2027 is finalised. Colleagues, we also welcome WHO Europe's commitment to accountability and transparency, as illustrated by the third annual accountability report. Ensuring that Member States have sufficient insight into how WHO is resourced, structured, managed, and governed is an important prerequisite to strengthen the level of trust needed for more predictable and flexible financing. Any additional data that can be provided to document trends, for example in distribution of staffing, would strengthen the accountability reporting. We remain positive to support WHO Euro in finalizing and implementing the program budget for 2026-2027. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Norway. And I'd like to give the floor to the Russian Federation.
Thank you very much, Chair. We would like to thank the Secretariat for preparing the relevant documents. We note the significant work of the Secretariat and the Regional Director, given the cost cuts, and I would like to point out a few points. First of all, from the point of view of governance and accountability, in future it would be a good idea to synchronize these two documents, the General Programme of Work and the European Programme of Work. We understand that this year WHO has encountered significant financial challenges, and therefore we have delayed this operational planning, but in future we hope that we can return this aspect of work into a normal cycle so that we can look at the outcomes for operative planning and so that member states can put forward their views. This would ensure accountability and greater transparency. In terms of financing, we believe that the organisation should focus on those areas of work that enjoy universal support of member states. In future, it would be a good idea to carry out a comprehensive assessment of the transformation at a regional level. This will enable us to learn lessons and also to ensure a due level of accountability. The transformation is taking place within other UN organizations, and clear trends for seeking effectiveness can be found, and this is relevant to our work. We would stress that any initiative any issues pertaining to UN 80 should be considered, and we should look at key budget lines and also the timelines that the Secretariat has for these changes. And we welcome this work, and we think that this work will help us to enhance transparency of the budget. And we would be grateful to the Secretariat to obtain some information as regards the regional budget, and particularly with regard to paragraph 43 of the report, so that we can ensure effectiveness. I would like to thank the Secretariat once again for the work that they have carried out, and we support the budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Russian Federation. I don't see any other nameplates raised, so I would ask and give the floor to UN agencies and other international organizations. If there's any interventions, please raise your nameplate so I can see them, and I give you the floor. I don't see any. Then I would propose to move on to the non-state actors. We have not received any requests to speak on their behalf, anybody. So, and also don't see anybody else just getting up and jumping to intervene. I would propose, for the sake of time, that I would give the floor to Corinne and David first to respond to what the questions and answer the questions and that you were raised, and finish up maybe with the RD. Thank you. Corinne, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I think I will go first. Just to Norway, yes, we did not present, as we usually do every year, a slide that shows our expenditure data and trends. This being a very exceptional year, where really it was about a reduction in availability of funds and try to extend our usage of funds for as long as possible. So we didn't think the trends were so useful in this setting. But I can maybe and we will report, of course, in due time as the year ends. But we do have some estimations of what's going to happen by the end of the year, and the main ones indeed are in the reduction in VCs, where our expenditures on equipment for third parties has reduced by 60%. So $13 million less than in the previous year. Medical supplies by 25%, and training by 20%. So this really shows that our VC availability and activities has reduced and reduced and reduced. And then, of course, are the reductions that we really aimed at. So as the travel has reduced by 53% from 24 to 25. And of course, our running costs have reduced by almost 80%. Well, no, we haven't reduced our running costs by 80%, sorry, but only for the vehicles. But we've reduced our running costs considerably during this year by making a lot of long-term sustainable savings. So I just wanted to point that out. Our staff costs, unfortunately, did not reduce during this year. But yes. So.
Thanks, David. So there was several themes maybe in the intervention, so I will quickly go through these themes if that's fine. So the first one was on sustainability, which came in a number of interventions of the distinguished delegates. Sustainability, I mean, rest assured that it has been, it remains, and it will continue to be at the heart of the ongoing prioritization, restructuration, and allocation of work. It has been really one of our main guiding principles, but we also welcome the call for more predictable and flexible financing, definitely, and also the recognition of the importance of the coherence across WHO 3 levels. We are working very closely with headquarters colleagues to define the division of labor and to strengthen this alignment. And yesterday also, we have to take that also in the frame of the work that is being done under the leadership of the regional director in the UN 80, which he mentioned yesterday in his address to the regional committee. And of course, in the frame of the evolving global structure. Relocation of function was mentioned as well. Moving some of the teams and functions to Istanbul is part of the vision and decision to move some of the enabling function, to relocate some of the enabling function to that location. Geographical relocation of some of the technical functions to several other duty stations is to bring that expertise closer to areas where there is a great need. And this relocation are to strengthen technical collaboration. It's not to fragment further. We appreciate the emphasis on innovative approach to resources, including stronger collaboration with member states, governments, and partnerships that strengthen institutional capacity. Finally, there was quite a number of comments on monitoring and evaluation. Of course, monitoring, evaluation, and measuring the impact of the organizational realignment and the result of our work remain a cornerstone of good results-based management. strengthen accountability and technical excellence. We have now an evaluation officer in Euro, and actually we have a plan to develop a regional evaluation plan for 26-27. And the last point, several of you also mentioned the global reserves. The access to global reserve is really a very exceptional circumstance to respond to a very exceptional situation linked with the withdrawal of one of our member states. We don't see it as a rolling source of funding for sure, but indeed that's something that we need to keep in mind. I will probably stop here by thanking all of you, all of our member states for your confidence, also your words of support on the human impact that the restructuring have, on your solidarity for our staff, and for your trust moving forward, including the endorsement of the EPW2 just now. Thank you very much, and I pass the floor back to you.
Thank you very much, Corinne, David, and the entire team for this in-depth presentation and the response to the questions. And of course, we can make the information always better, and I know that the team has been working hard on this, and I see more and more information, and that makes sense, and that helps us also even better in the future. So this will conclude now the agenda item 6.